Hey guys, Mr. Breen here, and in this video I'm going to talk about things that do change demand. Not price, remember price doesn't change demand, but there are other factors that can. Okay, let's take this demand right here, and you'll notice these numbers are big. Let's say this is the demand for a town, maybe all of Dearborn in, a day or a week or something like that. I don't know how many pounds of apples people in Dearborn buy every week, but so if the price is $1, people will buy 15,000, and if the price is $2, people will buy 12,000. That's smaller because remember the income effect, the substitution effect. The law of demand is that if the price goes up, the quantity demanded goes down. Notice that on our curve over here, as the price goes up, quantity goes down. Price goes up, quantity goes down. Law of demand. Now, for any demand curve, so for this demand, everything is held constant except for price and quantity. And of course, price is the independent variable. So everything is held constant. And so we sometimes say, with all other things equal, with all other things besides price being the same, what will price's effect on quantity be? And another way of saying this is ceteris paribus, which is Latin for with other things being equal. So what if something changes that we had previously held constant? Something besides price, of course, because we know if the price changes, we'll just move to a new point on the graph. Price changes, new point on the graph. Well, if one of those things changes, maybe everybody demands more no matter what the price is. So at $1, instead of 15,000, people buy 17,000. Or at $2, instead of 12,000, people buy 15. And at 10, they buy 11. And instead of 8, they buy 9. And instead of 7, they buy 7,500. Well, I'll get to what could possibly cause that in a second, but let's see what effect this will have on the graph. Well, now at $1, roughly maybe there, people instead of demanding that much will demand that much. So we're going to put a point, let's put it in blue, we'll put a point over there. And at $2, instead of demanding this much, they now demand that much, and we'll put a point there. And at $3, rather than demanding this much, they are going to demand over here. So I'll put another point, and you know what? It's just going to form a line right like that moved to the right. That's our new higher demand curve. So when demand goes up, and this is higher demand, right? Instead of 15,000, people are demanding more now at every price. Okay. When demand goes up, it moves on the graph to the right. That's because for a given price, people now buy a higher quantity. Given price, higher quantity. For demand that's lower, the opposite's going to happen. At every price, so at $1, instead of demanding that much, they demand less. So that's going to be over here. And at $2, instead of demanding that much, they demand down there. So that's there. And we're going to just end up with a line that's more to the left. And that's lower demand, because at every price, people now demand a smaller quantity. So some of the kinds of things that can change demand are income, population, consumer tastes, complementary goods, substitute goods, and consumer expectations, but I want to talk about each of these just a little bit. Income's fairly obvious. When incomes go up, people are willing and able to buy more of things and to pay more for them, so at every price, quantity demanded goes up. In other words, demand increases for most goods, goods that we call normal goods. But there are certain kinds of goods that you tend to buy more of when you're not doing as well, when you're not bringing in as much money. The classic example of an inferior good would be something like chicken. Most people tend to prefer beef, but if your income goes down, you might switch over to chicken, which is a little bit cheaper. And so when incomes go down, maybe demand for chicken actually goes up. Another example might be off-brand cereal. So when people's incomes go down, instead of buying the more expensive brand name cereal, they switch over to those cheaper off-brand cereals, and demand for those goods could actually increase. Population is pretty self-explanatory. If the population goes up, demand for most things goes up, and if the population goes down, then demand for most things goes down. Consumer taste is also pretty explanatory. If people just decide that they like something more than they used to, then demand for it will go up, and if they lose taste for that thing, then demand for it will go down. This is like a lot of fads, right? Things like Pugs when I was a kid, or Beanie Babies. This consumer taste thing is one of the reasons why companies run advertisements. They're trying to get people to like their product more than they used to and raise demand for their product by doing that. Complementary goods are goods that you buy together. So toothbrush and toothpaste, or peanut butter and jelly, or bread and peanut butter, things like that. So we know that a change in price for a good cannot change the demand for that good, but a change in the price of a complementary good could. So if the price of peanut butter goes up, the demand for a complementary good might go down. And if the price of peanut butter goes down, maybe the demand for a complementary good goes up. Think about it this way. Let's say the government set a zero price for like cheese. So you could just go to your local, some government agency and just collect cheese, right? What do you think is going to happen to the demand for crackers? Well, the demand for crackers is probably going to go way up, because what do you eat with cheese? You eat crackers with cheese. Similarly, the price of substitute goods can also affect the demand for a good. So substitute goods are goods that you buy instead of some other good. So, for example, a substitute for a rental car might be a pass for public transportation. So if the price of a pass for public transportation goes up, the demand for rental cars might go up. Because if the price of a pass for public transportation goes up, fewer people are going to be willing and able to pay the money for that, so instead they'll rent cars. So obviously, if the price of a substitute good goes down, then the demand for that original good will go down. So if the price of a public transportation pass goes down, then the demand for rental cars will go down. Finally, demand can be swayed by differing consumer expectations. So think about it this way. If you expect that the price will go down in the future, say you know there's going to be a sale next week, what's going to happen to your demand now? Well, obviously, it's going to go down. You're going to wait until next week. Similarly, if you expect the price to go up in the future, you'd rather buy that thing today rather than wait until the price goes up later. So the demand now will go up if people expect the price to go up in the future. Now, I want you to notice something very important. All of these things, income, population, consumer taste, price of complementary goods, substitute good prices, and consumer expectations, these things can change demand, but a change in supply will not change demand. Just because more or less of it is being produced will not change demand. Now, that sounds counterintuitive to most people at first, but really when you think about it, it makes a lot of sense. The fact that producers are producing more or producing less doesn't change your willingness or ability to buy a product. Now, I suspect most people think that supply changes demand because they reason in the following way. They think that if suppliers supply less, that people will purchase or demand more because they will expect that there will be fewer of that thing in the future, and therefore that the price will be higher in the future. In other words, they expect the price to go up. But what are they responding to? They're not really responding to a decrease in supply, they're really responding to an increase in the price. And more specifically, they're responding to an expected future increase in price, which actually is just consumer expectations. So just to recap, these 6 things, income, population, consumer taste, complementary goods, substitute goods, and consumer expectations, will change demand, the actual position of the curve. Unlike price, which doesn't change the position of the curve, it will just shift you along the curve if it changes. But supply is not a thing that changes demand.